Hey everyone, so in today's video we are back with another save or splurge video. So if you're not familiar with these videos on my channel, they are basically like my answer to the traditional dupes video. So I really enjoy comparing products on my channel, and I love saving money. I mean, who doesn't love saving money? But at the same time, I'm willing to spend a little bit more money on a formula and a product that I really love. I think the term dupe is kind of overused. So what I like to do is kind of get down into the nitty-gritty of different formulas and comparing them. That is what really excites me. I want you guys to be able to have all of the information about these products so that at the end of the day, you can make the decision for yourself whether or not you think you'd like to save on a product or splurge. We have 5 different duos to talk about today. I want to first start off with the one that I am the most excited about, the one that has really piqued my interest and a lot of yours interest, I think, as well. It is this new product from Maybelline. It is the Maybelline Perfector 4-in-1 Glow Makeup. And I'm of course going to be comparing it to the Hollywood Flawless Filter. I've heard a ton of people raving about this and how it is a dupe for the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter. The Flawless Filter is a product that I have used for a very long time. I have the shade 1 Fair. This is actually the lightest shade that is available. It retails for $44. You get 1 fluid ounce of product. It comes in 12 different shades. I think that that is something that makes this product very special. As for the Maybelline 4-in-1 Perfector, it comes in 5 different shades, retails for $12.99, and you get 0.67 fluid ounces. So you do get less product with the Maybelline, but that being said, price per ounce, this is still cheaper. Looking at the description of both of these items, they're very similar. And if you're not familiar with this kind of formula, to me, the formula is something between a skin tint and a liquid highlight. When the Flawless Filter came out, it really was a standout item because it didn't want to put itself in a box. And I remember back then, a lot of people were really confused by it. Consumer opinion has changed. I think more people are okay with multi-use products that aren't just a foundation, a blush, a bronzer. Kind of gray area and makeup like really excites me. So products like these really excite me. Quick note about packaging. I think the packaging is kind of annoying for both of these. Correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like a lot of people talk about how they very much dislike the kind of sponge applicator of the Maybelline Age Rewind Concealer, and then they decided to just do the same thing. It is a little bit less hygienic and it gets a little bit messy, but it is really easy. Certainly makes it easy to apply the product, and we'll talk about that later. And as for the Flawless Filter, it is easy to just stripe it all over the face, but it is more difficult to get use out of every single bit of product. And for $44, you definitely want to. Let's first talk about the texture of the Maybelline 4-in-1 Perfector. This has a very thin and smooth texture. It's quite lightweight, and I think that the sponge lends itself nicely to a texture like this. It spreads it on really nice and thinly. I like this because it doesn't really feel too creamy or too heavy. As for the Charlotte Tilbury texture-wise, I would say that this is very similar in a sense that it is very thin. It doesn't feel heavy on the skin. It applies very smoothly, it applies evenly. I would say there's a touch more weight to the Flawless Filter opposed to the Maybelline. So I think ultimately whether you should save or splurge is dependent on how you want to use this product. So let's first talk about these items as a liquid highlight that you would apply on top of foundation. For me, the Charlotte Tilbury gives you more highlight. It gives you more of a pearly glow look. It really has a little bit more impact, but it still walks that beautiful fine line between, is that a highlight? Is that just skin? Ultimately, I think that's part of the reason why so many people fell in love with the Flawless Filter to begin with. I really do feel like it gives a little bit more of that pearly highlighted effect. Now, talking about the Maybelline, in general, it's just more subtle. It has less pearly pigment to it. It does give you a nice, dewy, fresh glow, but again, it's just not as impactful as the Charlotte Tilbury is. It's not recognizable as a lot of highlight though. It is more on the subtle side though, so it just depends on what you are looking for. If you want something with a touch more impact that's still natural, I think that the Flawless Filter is better for that reason, but if you want something ultra subtle, this will give you some pretty illumination. Now, I think part of the reason why this doesn't give me as much glow as well is that the lightest shade I think could be lighter. I think that they could have added a few more shades within the Maybelline range. For my skin tone, the shade Fair definitely is lighter than my natural skin tone. Now, if we want to talk about this product as something that you wear all over the face, whether or not it is alone all over the face or under foundation, that's when things get kind of interesting. The Maybelline has less pearl, as we were talking about before. So on the skin, all over the face, I like the way that this looks more. It just looks more natural. It does have that subtle blurring look. It has a really pretty fresh dewiness, but again, it's still a nice thin texture that doesn't feel heavy. And again, to be honest, it is really easy to apply it with the sponge like all over the face. It's nice and fast and easy. And to be able to wear this all over with a little bit of concealer, I actually really like the way that it looked. When you layer foundation on top of it, if you wanted to use this as kind of like a glowy primer base, I think that it works really well for that as well. Now, the Flawless Filter also looks really pretty all over the face and then with foundation layered on top. Like, I think when you layer foundation on top of the product, these are virtually like indistinguishable. The Charlotte Tilbury maybe gives you a little bit more glow and impact just because of the pearls. But if you want to wear this alone with just maybe a little bit of concealer, I don't like to really wear this in that way. And I think that the 4-in-1 Perfector works much better in that application method. So save or splurge, I think it just depends on how you want to use this product. If I'm looking for just like a liquid highlight, I think that I would go with the Flawless Filter. But if I want to use it all over the face as a base or something to just wear with concealer, I think that this is very exciting, and I don't think I've been this excited about a Maybelline product in a long time. All right, for our next comparison, we're going to be talking about the Bare Minerals Blonzer and the Honest Beauty Lit Powder Blush. I recently talked about the Blonzer on my channel, and one of you actually left me a comment and said, hey, try this one out from Honest Beauty. So I went on Ulta and that is exactly what I did. So the Blonzer from Bare Minerals comes in 3 different shades. This is the shade Kiss of Rose. It retails for $25 and you get 0.13 ounces. As for the Honest Beauty, it retails for $13 and you get 0.1 ounces of product. So a little bit less product, but again, price per ounce, the Honest Beauty is certainly still more affordable. So as for the shades, these shades aren't completely the same. I feel like this one from Honest Beauty and Foxy would be a little bit closer to maybe Kiss of Copper from the Bare Minerals line rather than Kiss of Rose, but both of these shades are beautiful. As for the texture of these are also very similar. In general, it's just a little bit more of a dry formula, but it still has a nice creaminess to it. I almost want to say that it's kind of like a creamy baked formula. The Bare Minerals, I would say, is even more rich and even more creamy and even more pigmented, which is a pretty big difference between these two. Something else that makes them very similar is that they both have just a bit of a sheen to them. They have a shift. It's not a glitter, it's just a little bit of that dimensional shift that in theory when you apply it to the cheeks, it's just going to give you a little bit more of that fullness. It's just going to make the whole cheek look a little bit more dimensional and a little bit more luminous. I think some of you know that I already did talk about the Blonzer in my makeup regrets video. I know a lot of people really enjoy the Blonzer, but my main issue with it was that I didn't like the way that it looked on my skin. I felt like it made the pores on my skin, any fine lines, it just really exaggerated those things. Funny enough, when I was researching for this video, one of the main things that Bare Minerals talks about for this formula is that it's supposed to smooth the skin and hide imperfections and just make the skin look more perfected. And that, again, it's like my exact opposite experience, but I do know that so many people have enjoyed this one. The shift, like the golden shift in here, I felt was too strong and highlighted that texture that I didn't want it to. And something else that I mentioned before is that it actually made my cheeks look like less full, and that's something that I definitely didn't like. I also felt like it was a little bit patchy, like I never got as perfect of a blend as I wanted. But I have personally found that this one from Honest Beauty was everything that I was hoping the Bare Minerals one to be. It just looks much more flattering. It's much easier to blend as well. It still has that shift to it. It does still have a luminosity and a glow, but it's not quite as strong. It just looks more like volume and dimension. Again, I feel like this shade is probably closer to like Kiss of Copper rather than the Kiss of Rose. This one looks smoother. It's more easy to blend. It's not quite as pigmented, again, as the Bare Minerals, so I do wish that it was a little bit more pigmented, but overall the blend, the way that it looks, everything, I much prefer this. So I would personally say that if you didn't enjoy the Bare Minerals, I would save and pick up the one from Honest Beauty. And I also know that this potentially is a limited edition item. So if you liked these and you run out and you want a similar option, I would maybe look into this one from Honest Beauty. All right, but this is going to be an intense discussion. Urban Decay Moondust Shadow in Space Cowboy and the Colourpop Super Shock Shadow in Ritz. Space Cowboy from Urban Decay, as a lot of you know, this has been a staple on my channel for years. This was my go-to shadow to give my eyelids just a beautiful, glossy, wet effect. The sparkles literally look wet on the eyelids, but you don't need a gloss. This is really what sparked my love of cream shadow, in my opinion. This is not a cream, just to be clear, but that light reflection is really, I think, what prepped me for my love of cream eyeshadow. So when folks started saying that Ritz from Colourpop was a dupe, I had to see for myself and prove or disprove that claim. So Urban Decay Space Cowboy is $22. You get 0.06 ounces of product, and the Super Shock Shadows from Colourpop are $6 and you get 0.07 ounces. So you actually get a touch more product with the Colourpop. I know a lot of you guys are familiar with Space Cowboy, but very quickly, what is unique about this is that it has almost like a barely there beige base to it, and it almost looks translucent. That in and of itself almost looks wet, but then suspended throughout the product are these gorgeous golden silver glitters that when light catches them, the lids look really ultra glossy. When I tried this, again, I really hadn't tried anything like it. Again, this is a powder formula and the texture is very, very thin, but it's not gritty. It's still very, very smooth, and it looks very thin and weightless on the eyelids. Now, talking about this Super Shock formula, this range also differs between shades. There are some mattes, there are ultra glitters. This in particular is an ultra glitter, and the formula is, again, that really plush, soft, and smooth, creamy formula that kind of gives into the weight of the finger. It's just such an easy formula to work with. I like that it's creamy, but it's not too thick. It's still relatively thin. Talking about the shades of these two products, if you're just going off of shade, this is a dupe. I can't even believe that I'm really saying that, just because, again, I don't use that word too often, but shade-wise, this is really the same thing. For what product you choose, it really depends on your personal preference. Do you prefer creams? Do you prefer powders? Because if you don't like cream products, you might never reach for this, so it might not be worth saving your money because, you know, you're not gonna get use out of it. But for me, I love cream eyeshadows. The look of them on the lids are so similar. I'm actually wearing Ritz today on my eyelids. It really gives me the same effect as Space Cowboy. I think that the Colourpop has a touch less fallout, but also creases a little bit faster. But I'm really, like, I am nitpicking here, you guys. For me, I'm calling this a damn good dupe, and that really says a lot coming from me. The only difficulty is the difficulty with a lot of Colourpop products, which is Colourpop Super Shock Shadows come in and out of stock very sporadically. It is in stock right now on Colourpop's website. Next, we're going to be comparing the e.l.f. Jelly Pop Dew Primer to the Glow Recipe Watermelon Glow Niacinimide Dew Drops. So the e.l.f. Jelly Pop Primer, you get 1.01 ounces of product, so basically an ounce of product. And with the Glow Recipe, you do get slightly more, 1.35 ounces, but the Glow Recipe will cost you $35, and the e.l.f. primer is $10. Really not much to say about packaging here either. You do get a glass bottle with the Glow Recipe. The pump works great, and the e.l.f. pump works really well too. It's just a plastic tube rather than glass. So the e.l.f. Jelly Pop Primer really has like a very jelly-ish consistency. It's very smooth, and it still has a nice glide to it. Like, I always worry with more sticky primers that they're not going to glide over the skin well, and this one I find still has enough glide to it. I find that this really feels hydrating as well. It will eventually sink down into the skin and hydrate it, but it does take a little bit longer because this does have like significant tackiness to it. This is definitely one of those products that if you like that tack for a foundation to stick to, this is an item that is really good at that. As for the texture of the Glow Recipe, upon just pumping it out, you would think that it would have a very similar texture, but I actually find that this more readily like melts into the skin. It kind of looks jelly-ish when you pump it out. It certainly has a little bit of that gel quality, but again, it really sinks and melts into the skin very quickly. For me, being that I have dry skin, I find that my skin really quickly absorbs it. It doesn't have as much general tackiness as the e.l.f. does, but it still does have a touch of it. As for the finish of these products, I think the Jelly Pop adds more glow, whereas the Glow Recipe, I think it's more of a, you know, I just did my skincare routine kind of product. The look of it just looks like hydrated, slightly moisturized, and glowy skin. It's definitely more subtle. So getting into whether or not you should splurge or save, I think one thing that is important to note is that the Glow Recipe, it does have some actives in here. It has niacinimide as well as hyaluronic acid, and there's a little bit more of those active ingredients. e.l.f. Jelly Pop also has hyaluronic acid, but for me, I'm not looking for skincare results or benefits when I'm using a product like the Jelly Pop Primer. This to me functions in that primer tacky base step. So if you like a tacky primer, I personally would save and go with this. But if you don't really wear makeup, if you just want a little bit of a glow, you want a serum with a nice finish, I think that this one is really pretty. But I haven't really used this consistently enough to say whether or not it gives results. So I don't know, I'm more inclined to say go with the e.l.f. rather than the Glow Recipe. And lastly, we have a lip plumper comparison. I really feel like lip plumpers are kind of having their moment again. We are going to be comparing the Diamond Plumper from Physicians Formula to what a lot of people would probably consider like the gold standard, in some ways, the Too Faced Lip Injection Extreme. So with the Physicians Formula Diamond Plumper, it retails for around $6.99 and you get 0.17 ounces. And the Too Faced Lip Injection Extreme, so I have the travel size, it's $16 and you get 0.10 ounces. In general, the Physicians Formula is much more affordable. Both of these items have a little bit of like that iridescent shift that I definitely associate with lip plumpers. This is kind of like a lip plumping serum rather than a lip plumping gloss. So I think that's a really important distinction when looking at these products. Like, what are you looking for? What kind of texture are you looking for? Because this is quite thin and it pretty immediately like get soaked in by your lips. Now it does leave a little bit of a glossy look, but it's really not going to offer a long-lasting glossy effect. The Physicians Formula is more of a gel lip gloss texture. It's going to really offer that glossy looking look. The Diamond Plumper is essentially a lip gloss with a plumping effect. As for the sensation of these products on the lips, so the Too Faced, it's a strong tingle. You are going to feel this. This is pretty spicy. I'm not even really sensitive to lip plumpers, but I definitely felt this one on my lips. For the Physicians Formula, it definitely has a plumping tingle to it, but it's not really something that you notice long term. As for taste, as for smell, the Physicians Formula just smells like a classic lip plumper. It's not a smell that I mind, but if you don't like the smell of lip plumper, I mean, this smells like a lip plumper. As for the smell of the lip injection, this smells like cough syrup lip plumper. So, you know, take your pick. But we must answer the question, which actually plumps your lips? You know, do you get that plumping effect? So this Too Faced Lip Injection Extreme, you certainly get a big plumped up lip look. But I have to ask, at what cost? My lips look so chapped and like sore and irritated when I apply this. What I notice is that the outlines of my lips get really irritated and it ends up not really giving me a crisp lip line, and it's just not flattering. I think this would certainly plump up and give a really beautiful effect to those of you with very clean lip lines, but I don't find that I particularly have that, and I just find that it's just not flattering on my lips. I don't like the way that it looks. It's quite irritating, and actually I put this out on my hand alone and I got like a bit of a rash, so it's doing something. It will definitely plump up your lips, but I actually don't like the way that it looks, weirdly enough. Well, the Physicians Formula Diamond Plumper, this gives me what I'm looking for. It gives me that touch of a tingle. It gives you a little bit more of a plumped up look, but the gloss itself really fills in the lip lines, adds that pretty shine. You can see I've been filming for like over an hour now. Even though the shine has faded, it still looks nice and just a little bit more plumped up. My lips just look healthier rather than irritated. I would say personally save and go with the Physicians Formula, but I can understand, like, this delivers results, you know what I mean? So I do respect it for that reason, but unfortunately I did not like the result. If you guys have been interested in the Soul Body from Colourpop, or maybe the new Anastasia cream bronzer, I'm going to be doing a bunch of comparisons very soon on my channel. A little 1 week of cream bronzer possibly coming soon. So make sure that you subscribe before you go so you don't miss that video. But overall, I hope that this was a really valuable look at these products. I hope it was helpful if you were looking at any of these items. And at the end of the day, whether I would save or splurge doesn't really matter. I just hope that the in-depth looks at these products help you ultimately make the better decision for you. I will leave my entire Save or Splurge playlist linked down below in case you guys want to see some of the other comparisons I've done. And with all of that, I will see you in my next one.